Hey everyone, ready to dive into something truly spine-chilling?
Always up for a good scare, especially when it's as well written as this.
We're diving into the first three parts of Srinidhi Ranganathan's The Maaaar. And I gotta say, this monster series, it's got a grip on me.
It's more than just a monster story though, right? It's like Ranganathan's using this creature, this Maaaar, to explore something bigger.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from the very first description, you're hit with this intense feeling of dread.
The way he sets it up, you know something's coming, like that quiet moment right before a storm.
Yes. And then, bam, the Maaaar explodes onto the scene, and you are just got consumed by it. What did you think of Ranganathan's descriptions, by the way?
Intense. He drops you right into the sensory experience. You don't just hear about the Maaaar, you feel it. The ground shaking, the stench of the ocean.
Ugh, don't remind me about the smell. And those tentacles, right? Compared to redwoods.
Yeah, he's got a real talent for taking something familiar, even majestic like a redwood, and twisting it into something terrifying.
Speaking of terrifying, the island itself, Aiko, it's more than just a setting, isn't it?
It's practically a character in itself, steeped in these ancient legends, this feeling of isolation.
And those legends, man, that's where Ranganathan really gets you. Because he introduces this older generation, people like Arana, who've heard the stories, who sense something's wrong.
And the younger generation just dismisses it all, right? Those are just stories, old man's tales, classic horror movie setup.
It's like they've forgotten, or maybe they never learned, that sometimes those old stories hold a grain of truth. And in this case, that grain of truth is a terrifying ocean-dwelling monster.
And isn't that what makes it so scary? That idea that we ignore the warnings, the whispers of danger, until it's right upon us.
Which, by the way, is a perfect way to transition into part 2, where the Maaaar stops whispering and starts roaring. That roar, though, when the Maaaar finally emerges, Ranganathan really knows how to build tension, doesn't he?
It's masterful. You go from this almost eerie calm to utter chaos in the blink of an eye.
And the way he describes the island being torn apart, it's visceral.
The imagery he uses, it's like you're right there in the middle of the carnage. You can practically feel the ground shaking, hear the buildings crumbling.
And the islanders, those poor people, caught completely off guard.
And yet, even in the midst of all that terror, you see these glimmers of incredible bravery.
Like Malio. He just charges headfirst into this impossible fight.
Right. Knowing he's probably going to die, but still, he fights, makes you think about what you would do in that situation.
Honestly, I don't even want to imagine it. But speaking of fighting back, that's when things take an even wilder turn, right? The summoning of the sea gods.
Talk about a game changer. And the way Ranganathan describes the battle, Epic doesn't even begin to cover it.
But he does something really interesting with the sea gods, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He never explicitly states their motivations.
Exactly. Are they there to save the islanders? Or are they just another force of nature, indifferent to the struggle below? It's left open to interpretation, which makes it all the more unsettling, if you ask me.
Oh, for sure. It's like we're so used to these clear-cut good versus evil narratives, but Ranganathan throws that out the window. He gives us this glimpse into a world where the lines are blurred, where even the gods might not have all the answers.
And that's part of what makes the Maaaar so thought-provoking. It's not just a monster story. It's a story about the unknown, about the forces that shape our lives, whether we understand them or not.
And sometimes those forces leave us with more questions than answers. Which brings us to part 3 and the aftermath of that epic clash. And let me tell you, the silence that follows is deafening. It's like the whole world just exhales, you know. After that incredible battle, there's this sudden quiet.
And it's almost deafening, isn't it? That silence.
It is. It's like
Okay.
you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it never does. Just this unsettling stillness.
Ranganathan really nails that feeling of unease, of something being deeply, fundamentally wrong, even though the immediate threat, the Maaaar, is gone.
It's like he's saying the monster was just the beginning, which, when you think about it, is way scarier than any physical creature.
Absolutely. It's that creeping sense of the unknown, the idea that there are forces at play we can't even begin to understand.
And we don't get any answers, do we? I mean, the story ends, but it doesn't really end.
Nope. No neat resolution, no explanation for where the Maaaar went or what the sea gods were really after.
We're left with Hoki, standing on the shore, looking out at this changed world. It's a powerful image.
It is. And it's not just Hoki's world that's changed, right? It's ours too. I mean, after reading this, how can you look at the ocean the same way?
Right, you're always going to be wondering what's lurking beneath the surface, what ancient forces might be at play.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of the Maaaar. It stays with you long after you finish the last page. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about the world.
And maybe, just maybe, it makes you listen a little closer to those old stories. Just in case they hold a grain of truth. Well, folks, that's our deep dive into Srinidhi Ranganathan's The Maaaar, a chilling tale that reminds us sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we can't see or explain.
And that sometimes the silence speaks volumes.